So, welcome to Small Farm Living. My name is Julie, and whether you like sparkly crafts or you prefer the more rustic farmhouse style, I've got you covered because we're going to do 3 different crafts today. And each craft, I'm going to do a variation in the sparkles, and I'm also going to do one in the farmhouse style. So, let's get in the house and get to crafting. All right, so first up, we're going to start with craft number 1. And this one, we're going to make sparklers, and I'm starting with bamboo skewers. And the first one we're going to do is going to be the more rustic vintage style of a sparkler, and we are going to start with these white pipe cleaners, and I'm just going to twist them all the way down the barbecue skewer until I reached the end of the pipe cleaner. And if you're new here, pardon my hands. I have a flower and veg farm that I do all of the time, and regardless of wearing gloves, the dirt just seeps through and stains my hands and my fingers. So just bear with me and enjoy the craft. But as soon as we get to the bottom of getting this skewer wrapped on here, I'm going to do all the rest of them, and then we're going to go outside and we're going to paint these. Now, the paint that I have is actually a glass silver, but when I spray it on this white pipe cleaner, it really goes into this matte, almost steel looking gray, which was perfect because it was what I was after, and hoping that you can really see the color there. But it's really that color of those old-fashioned sparklers where the stems were all metal, and we will be spraying the ends later, but I'm just going to stick these into an empty pot that I have here on the deck and let the wind dry those. And while those are drying, I am going to move on to getting the sparkler ones, or the sparkly version, done. And these darn pipe cleaners, they shed, but this is just the silver version, very sparkly. I got these at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to twist these all the way down, and again, until I run out of the pipe cleaner. And because these are a little bit thinner of a pipe cleaner, I grabbed another one and kept going for a little bit just so I matched the same length on the sparkler portion as I did with the vintage style ones. And once I reached that point, because they were so thin, I just kind of bent the pipe cleaner and went back up over the skewer. And because I didn't have enough of that pipe cleaner to do it really tightly, I did it more in an open looped style like this. And I did it until I got all the way back up towards the tip, and that way it gave it a little more fuller look. And you can see how that is just, it looks like a sparkly sparkler. So here we have the more modern ones. I had these 2 different ribbons in my stash, had them forever. I got them at the thrift store a long time ago. I liked this one, but it has holes in the center of it in between each one of the colors, so that wasn't really going to work. And this one that I have, I like it because if you have noticed on the newer sparklers, I don't know if any of you have bought them recently, but the newer ones have like that paper wrapping along the handle in kind of the fun colors. And I thought this ribbon represented that. But there was a little too much blue. I had already tried wrapping this on there to see what it looked like. And so I cut a little bit of the blue out on some portions of this ribbon so that when I put this on, it wasn't, just like a blue. It looked really like mostly blue. And this way you get more of the colors by cutting a little bit of that blue out. So I just put a little bit of hot glue at the top and just started winding this down. And then because it's a thinner ribbon, every so often I just stopped and put the tiniest little bit of hot glue on there just to secure it in place so that it didn't slip off. Because, if you let go of it with your fingers, it all unravels. Ask me how I know. And I'm just going to keep working my way all the way down until there's just a little bit left at the tip of the barbecue skewer. And I'm just leaving that bare just in case I want to stick these into some kind of foam or something. But now I've got all of these done. And I think they look very much like the modern day sparklers. I was pretty pleased with how those turned out. And now I'm going to grab the vintage style ones, and you can see how they're just that matte steel gray. But I kind of thought, these are sparklers. I'm going to spray paint the bottom of these gray here in a little bit. But first I wanted to put on just the slightest bit of sparkle on top of this matte gray so that they did look a little bit more fun and sparkly. And so I just kind of open wound these, as you can see here. And then when I got to the base, I twisted it and wrapped it back up around in the opposite direction. So you could still see a lot of that deeper slate gray color underneath, but it did give it a little bit of a sparkle, so it looks like a sparkler. So I'll go spray these, and here they are when they're done. Now I am going to be working on, in my next Patriotic video that I put out, I think I'm going to try to make some boxes for my sparklers and make the boxes look vintage. So we'll see how that goes. So make sure you're subscribed if you'd like to see that next video. Here are the more modern ones, and I think they turned out really fun. Just cute little decor pieces that I'll probably use on my mantle. So let me know what you thought of these. Now our next craft, we are going to be making some banners. Now again, because each one of the crafts, one's going to be sparkly and one's going to be more rustic, we're going to start with the sparkly one today. I'm going to be using this ribbon, which I got from Joann's, and then these balls right here, they actually came off some sprigs. Let me go grab a sprig here. And this is what they looked like. I got these at the Hobby Lobby. They were actually Christmas decorations, and I got them when they were like 90 or 95% off. It was crazy. And I thought I could use these for the 4th of July. I love it when you go to a sale after a holiday and there's pieces that you can just envision using for something other than that holiday. But these pipe cleaners I got at the Dollar Tree. I'm going to be using these as quote the string in between the balls for my garland. And so I'm just measuring how far apart I want those to be, because I'm going to be putting a little strip of the ribbon in between the two balls. So I'm just going to hold that down with my barbecue skewer, measure out how far I think I want the flag piece to be, and then I'm just going to cut a piece of that off. Now these did end up being a little bit too long. I cut a whole bunch of them out. And then I kind of thought, you know what? I think it would be kind of fun to use my pinking shears on these and give the edges of the flags kind of like a little tattered look or something to them. But oh my gosh, my pinking shears are getting dull. And on this ribbon, it took me forever to get these all cut out. But I finally did. And then as soon as I got them all cut out, then I could start assembling. And I'm just going to take the barbecue skewer and poke a hole into one of these balls, because with all that sparkle on the ball, when you poke the hole and take the barbecue skewer out, you really can't even see where the hole was. And especially for me, I'm at the point where I need readers with things up close, and I did not have glasses on. So this just made it easy to right away know where that hole was. And I'm just poking that pipe cleaner down in there so it's glued. And I realized that about half a pipe cleaner was the distance that I wanted in between each of the balls. So the first one I hadn't cut yet, so I just used the one that I had cut, measured it, and got that one cut off so that I could get it adhered into the white ball. So I just did the same thing on that. I poked a hole in it, glued it, stuck it in, and then I had my piece. And then I put my ribbon up and realized that I had cut them just a little bit too long. So I'm going to cut them all down a little bit smaller so it fits a little bit more appropriately in between. And I'm going to alternate a silver and a red pipe cleaner in between the balls so that it's not just all one color, just to give it a little more sparkle and fun for my granddaughter. She's 4, well, almost 4. A few weeks she'll be 4, and little things like sparkles make her heart so happy. So again, I dealt with these pinking shears and got them all cut down to size. And now that I have them all cut down, we're going to start putting them together. I just put a little strip of glue across the top of the flag and then turned it over and laid it on top of the pipe cleaner. And again, typical me, I don't even know if I can use my silicone fingers anymore, because every time I do a video, I say, oh, I'm going to remember to get my silicone fingers next time, and I never do. I always forget. But I just very carefully got them put on in between, and here's what it looked like. I gave it a little bit of a jiggle so that you could just see the sparkle effect of those balls. And I think my granddaughter is going to love this. This is going to go hanging up in her room somewhere. But you can see the alternation of the pipe cleaner colors and the red, white, and blue balls that were saved from Christmas decor at Hobby Lobby on clearance. And I think it turned out pretty sweet for her. I think she'll like it. And I do have my Easter stuff up still. I haven't gotten it down, so I apologize for that. Now here we're going to make the rustic version. I have this flag burlap, and I'm going to take jute twine, and then these beads are from a deconstructed piece that I used in the last Patriotic video that I did. And if you missed that and are new here, I'll link that down below if you want to go take a look at that. I made a whole bunch of fun rustic projects, and that's where that pinking cut came from. But for this project, I'm not going to be pinking the ends of this. I'm just going to be using straight cut. So I'm going to cut 3 stars wide. And I'm just going to clean up this end so that both ends match. And then I am going to cut out a whole bunch of these for my garland. And now that I have them all cut out, I took my jute twine. I had measured how long I wanted it to be. I folded it in half, and then I just used a scrap piece of this pipe cleaner to mark the center, and that's going to come in handy for doing each side. And I will explain that here coming up as soon as I get done with this side. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is the little red, white, and blue beads. I need to get those slipped on. I just kind of wanted to first make sure that from that center point over how many of these little flags I was going to need. And I didn't measure so that it was like perfectly centered in between. I'm not that way. I'm not OCD like that. Other things maybe, but not that. So I took a piece of tape and I wrapped the end of my jute twine so that I could get it through the beads without it fraying 100 times. And on this side, it was red, white, and blue traditional going on. And then as soon as I got the first set of beads on, and again, that's going to be the center, what I did was I undid that piece of pipe cleaner and I moved it over into a different bead. And the reason why I did this is because I didn't want the center to be too off. If I left it off to one side, then it would have been a little wonky when I went to hang it up. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to secure these beads on each end with a piece of jute here in a little bit. But the first thing I wanted to do was put some of my flags on and just eyeball how far apart I wanted those, knowing that I was going to have my beads in between the two. And my table is not wide enough for me to stretch this all out for you to see. So I'm just going to show you the first couple of flags that I put on. I just put, again, a strip across the top of the flag. And then with this, I thought if I flip it over, then I can see where the glue is, and tried to burn my fingers a little bit less when I tapped the jute twine down on top of the flag. And then I flipped it back over, put another set of beads on, and proceeded to do the same thing all the way down. And then these pieces of jute I cut, and I am doing it so that one side is a little bit longer than the other when I tie it on. Now, as I did the project, I didn't show you the whole thing, but some of them were not quite perfect. So I did cut them just to make sure that one little piece was a little bit longer than the other. And when you put these on here and tie them like that, you can see the ends don't want to hang down straight. So I just took a little bit of hot glue and stuck that on there and then pinched them together until it was fully dried. And that way, both of the pieces hung straight down the way they were supposed to. And then the very bottom portion of each of the jute strings, I unwound them. And then those three little individual pieces, I just took my fingernails and frayed the ends of those so that they had a little fuzzy look. And I am going to do that with the rest of these later after I get the rest of my garland put together. That will be the last step that I do probably. So again, just going to show you one more flag on this side because it's just the same thing over and over again. I'm going to put on the flag, the beads. And now this is where this comes in handy. I got the jute twine tied on each side of my beads that are the center of my garland, or I'm putting the second one on now so that those beads stay in place. And I glued down my first flag, but now the important part for remembering side to side is it was red, white, and blue on the other side, but now I have to start with blue and then go white and red so that when the garland hangs, all of my beads are the same color in the same direction and it makes sense. So now that it's done, I put a little loop on each end to tie it off. And again, I'm just going to work on getting these glued together and fraying the little ends and making sure that I have the two sizes. And here is the final result. I thought it turned out really sweet. I didn't have anywhere to hang it that was super long for you to see, so pardon the backlight of the window, but you can see how I have a flag, the two jute pieces hanging down with the beads. The lighting will get a little bit better as I go this way a little bit, and you can see it a little bit better. But you can see how the beads there in the center of my garland, the two flags kind of bump together, but where I'm intending to hang it for its final reveal for the 4th of July, I may not be that way. So let me know what you think of these. I thought they turned out pretty fun. Now we are going to go on to our third and final craft of the day. And we are going to be making two different wreaths. Now the first one, again, is going to be for my granddaughter because it's Sparkle Sparkle. And I'm just taking one of these garlands. I think it might be two that I hooked together. It was in my 4th of July decoration stash, and I have a whole bunch of these. So I'm just going to start by putting a little bit of hot glue on the wire at my starting point and holding that down until it's nice and secure. And then I am just going to gather up all of this stuff into my hands and shove it down the center of the wreath frame and get that pulled through. And it's just a repeat. I'm just going to be wrapping and stuffing and wrapping and stuffing until I get all the way around to the other side of the wreath. And it's super simple. It just takes some patience and some fiddling getting that through there. And when you get to the very end and it looks like you only need to wrap it one more time, I always push it to the side a little bit because there always is a little bit of wiggle room, and added a few more wraps just so that it looked nice and full. You couldn't see any of the wire coming through. And now we have a nice full little wreath. And what I'm going to do is just put a little dab of hot glue there and glue the end down. And then I cut it off, and then I slipped it back through the very top wire of that frame to make a loop. And then because this is wired garland already, I'm just going to take the two ends and wrap them around each other nice and secure. So I have a little hanging loop, and then the extra little piece, I thought I would just add a tail to the bottom of the wreath. So again, the very last wire on the bottom of the wreath, I just slipped this through there and then very gently tied it in a knot, because if you've ever tried to tie these in a knot before and you rake it too hard, you know that it just kind of rips all of the stuff off of there. So I was very gentle with it, and I did trim the ends up just a little bit and then hung it on my front door. It is a little small for my front door, but I just wanted you to see outside with the air movement and the sparkliness of it. And this is probably going to go hang in my granddaughter's bedroom on her door, and she will love it for 4th of July. So let me know what you thought of those. Now this second one, it is the same size wreath form. We're going to make a rag wreath, and I need to cut out strips of fabric for this. Now I'm going to be using my ruffled cutter. It has kind of like a pinking effect, but it's not sharp. It's more of a rounded edge. And what I need to do is cut out strips. I will put measurements down in the description below if you're interested for an 8-inch wreath form. I used to make these all the time for my Etsy shop, but for those of you who've been with me for a while, you know that my daughter had stage 3 breast cancer, and I shut everything down, including my farm, for about 2.5, almost 3 years, while I was helping her get through all of her treatments and everything. And she's doing good, thank the Lord. But I'm just getting the edges cut so that they're all even. And I was just showing you how the little ruffled edge looks there. I cut out my strip, and then I'm cutting those into my 7 inches for this size of a wreath frame. And now I'm not doing a full tutorial on this. And because the fabric was folded, sorry, I forgot to tell you, you end up with 6 strips for that. But again, I'm not doing a full tutorial on this wreath. I'm going to start by folding, and I always start in the middle. It just makes it easier. And then you stick your fingers through, you grab the fabric, and then you pull it taut. And so if you're interested in me doing a video on a rag wreath, the full tutorial of it, let me know down in the comments, and I'd be happy to do that. It would have made this video way too long for everything that I was doing. But again, you take the folded end and you stick it in between the first and the second row, stick your finger through the opening, grab the fabric, pull it through, pull it taut, and just continue that process. Now I want to show you on this one, I'm not going to show you the whole wreath because that would just be really boring. But when I get 3 of these on here, you will see that it looks like it's full. And I'll get these flipped around to the front so they're all in the same direction. They wiggle around a little bit when you're first starting, but it looks like it's full on that form. But if you move it aside, there's room for another one. And the key to these wreaths I have found over the years is making sure that you get plenty of the loops on each one of the sections. That way it makes for a nice full wreath, and you don't see any holes or gaps at the very end. So I will show you, I normally do the whole wreath first, but for the sake of this video, I won't. I normally don't do this fluffing the 2 pieces apart until the end, because the pieces of the upper side just get in the way. But that's what it looks like when it's all finished. I just did the same thing over and over and over again. It makes a really nice, fluffy, pretty wreath. The back is even pretty. It's all nice and tight back there. And then I just took a piece of ribbon around the very top loop of the wire and did a slip knot so I could make a hanger. And these are super fun. Again, the possibilities are endless with the colors. I've done them in red, white, and blue, and on the blue I've attached little white stars. But this one, I think it's fun too to just do a very simple monotone with one color of fabric. I mean, of course, this case it's a plaid fabric, but it is red, white, and blue, so it is very patriotic. And I just think they're super sweet. So again, let me know if you want a tutorial on it. If not, no big deal. You can add little decals to them, little stars in the center or on the side, whatever. And I just think they're fun. So now we are going to move on to the final reveal. So going over the crafts that we did today, here are the sparklers. Again, I am going to try to do a box for these. I think it would just be a fun little challenge, but I love how they both turned out. They're both unique in their own way. One super sparkly, one more vintage. And the wreath that we just finished, the little sparkly for my granddaughter. Very simple, very quick, easy to make. And the rag wreath, which it is very simple to make. It's just a little bit of a time consumer. So great thing to do if you're watching a movie or listening to a podcast or something. You could just sit down and do your loops. And the garland, the rustic one first. And I absolutely love this flag jute. I'm going to be really, or flag burlap, that's what it is. And then the sparkly garland for my granddaughter. So hopefully you enjoyed these crafts today, both in the sparkly and the rustic style. If you did, give me a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. Otherwise, thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next time.